to start today with Ricky Hatton's funeral. The first show should only be about Ricky, and I want to make sure that I get my tribute over, my feelings about Ricky, and my condolences and love to his family. The funeral on Friday was special. It was packed. It was something else. That one of them occasions where you don't want to be there and where you don't want to actually be having to do the drive up there for that reason. And I drove up there many times to Manchester during the times I was fighting to train and work alongside Ricky, and I was lucky and blessed to do so, as I say, to get to spar with Ricky and train with Ricky and do the things that we did in the gym day in, day out. Helped me so much as a fighter and helped me in my career, and the career he had was phenomenal, and the turnout at the funeral was phenomenal as well for him, and it was just testament to him and his family that so many people turned up from so many places across the world. I saw people in there from LA like Robert Diaz and other people who travelled long and far from all around the country to pay the respects to Ricky and to say their farewell in their own final way. And it was nice that we all got the chance to do that. It was nice that we all got to say goodbye and then have a little quiet few drinks afterwards in the wake afterwards and catch up with old faces and listen and share the old stories about Ricky. But Ricky was special. He was a special person. He was my friend. He was a lot of people's friend. And to use a line Kerry Cage used to say, there's 20,000 people in the arena watching him fight and 10,000 have probably had a bite with him. And that couldn't be any more true about someone like Ricky. It genuinely was probably true. You know, that many people had gone to support Ricky. Ricky was so accessible to anyone in the game and outside the game. It was fans that would stop him on the street and he ended up having a drink with them or having a talk and a chat with them and wished them well. And he was a lovely person. He was a friend, as I said again. And long may his memory continue. He certainly leaves a long-lasting legacy in British boxing. He's up there with the very best of all time, in my opinion. Now I want to get onto Ricky's style. Ricky's body punching was the best this country's produced, in my opinion. I don't think we've seen anyone who can close the show, finish a shot better than Ricky. To be able to throw and catch the body shots and land the body shots that he did is tough to do, and it takes a lot more than just brute force, physical power, work rate and strength, which a lot of people tend to only give Ricky credit for. Ricky was so much more than that. I've seen a few quotes and sayings this week when obviously he's passed away about how he was a brawler, and I resent it. I don't really like hearing that because I've been in the ring with him, I've been up close with him, and the people that sparred him a lot in the past and have fought him will certainly agree with me on that. He was so much more than being a brawler. His brain was second to none, and he was very, very underrated in just how smart he was. Just because he didn't fight that way doesn't mean that he wasn't that smart. The advice that I got from him when I was fighting still helps me out and helps the fighters that I train now and my brothers and anyone that I can be involved with inside the boxing gym to teach or to give advice to. The advice stems from back there with Billy Gray and with Ricky Hatton and all the coaches along the way, but the body punching especially. So much advice I picked up in that gym and so many tips and pointers here and there on how to fold people with body shots, shall we say. And it works, it worked then, it will always work. A lot of people neglect the body punching nowadays and don't tend to target that area because it's, you know, it's not seen as pretty fashionable anymore, but it was very fashionable when I was turning pro when I was a young amateur. I loved all the great body punchers. I had Andy Olligan close to me in Liverpool, obviously Julio Cesar Chavez over in Mexico, and Ricky was up there with him as a body puncher and was one of the best body punchers I've ever seen, especially one of the best I've ever been in the ring with, and I was lucky enough to be in that ring with Ricky. So his style was a lot more than being a brawler. He was so technically gifted and he worked his ass off for that as well. So yeah, I don't want to ever hear anyone call him a brawler again. He was so much more than that. The Kostya Tszyu fight in June 2005, I'll never forget it. I fought the night before and I was buzzing I was fighting the night before because I could then get to enjoy Ricky's show and have a few drinks and not worry about having to fight earlier and have my own nerves. My man was gone and done and dusted and out the way then. I was red raw on the night. I've got some photos which I'll show you now of me and Winky Wright and me and Diego Corrales, and I was celebrating on the night. I was having a drink with Russell Crowe backstage, just opened my tracky top, got a bottle of Budweiser out, bit the lid off and given me, and he got arrested the following day in New York with the same coat on. It was an unbelievable night. It was 2-3 in the morning, as I say. There was a lot of stars there, a lot of people come out to watch and support Ricky, and they idolised Ricky at the time, and he was in there with an unbelievable fighter in Kostya Tszyu, who was probably top 3 in the world pound for pound, as I've mentioned, and to not only beat him but to stop him and break him that night, which he did, it was testament to what Ricky was. And timing's great, timing's perfect, by the way. I think a year earlier it's probably a bit of a different fight, But the stars aligned that night for Ricky, and the performance was great. Me and my Uncle Kevin had a little bet on Ricky on the night. I think we had 50 quid on between us, or round 10 and round 11 stoppage, and he stopped him at the end of round 11. He didn't start the 12th, so we got paid for that as well. We had a great night. We were in the MEN, which is now the AO Arena, celebrating with all the other fans in there at stupid hours in the morning. Then we went on to one of his famous after parties in the hotel around the corner. When Ricky came in and celebrated, we were still in there probably 5, 6, 7 in the morning after a long day and a long night of fighting at the arena. But Ricky was known for that. Ricky was special in filling out arenas and taking the fans worldwide, as we've said time and time again with Ricky. Having spoke about Ricky and the funeral and saying goodbye, where does his legacy stand in British boxing? For many, I remember at the time when he was fighting Billy Graham, he used to tell me he thought he was the best out of the lot. And we had the time when there was him, there was Calzaghe, there was a lot of good fighters from the UK. I think Calzaghe's one of the greats. I think Lennox Lewis certainly has to be right up there at the top. But Ricky, I know all he wanted was to be mentioned in the same breath as those fighters, and he certainly is, especially for the boxing fraternity. Whether he's up there or not is a different question, but for me, I've never seen many as underrated as he was in the gym and on fight night, and sparring him and being there firsthand and experiencing that. I can safely say he was a quality fighter. His body punching obviously is second to none. He's probably the best body puncher that Britain has produced. He more than held his own with the Mexicans, with your Chavez's, the way they punched to the body. Ricky certainly did that. He was a destructive body puncher, or as Billy Graham would say, a murderous body puncher. And he knew not only how to land the shots, but where to land the shots. He knew how to dress them up and disguise them. He knew what to do well technically. Technically, he was a lot more gifted than people make out, but he worked hard. He worked so hard in the gym. He worked hard on fight night and setting good paces, and I think that's what ultimately won him on the night of the Kostya Tszyu fight, what won him the title. He broke Kostya Tszyu's heart and he outworked him, and that was a top 3 pound for pound fighter in the world at the time in Kostya Tszyu. So his legacy is a solid one. His legacy is one that will never be questioned or can't be questioned. And when we're talking about top 10 British fighters of all time, he's up there and he has to be in there. It's going to take some beating for someone from Manchester to do and replicate what he did, and to try and emulate what he did in taking fans over to the States. I think any fighter in Britain will struggle with that. But he was special, and he leaves an unbelievable legacy in British boxing. He cemented himself up there as one of the very, very best.
The dream is made real. Ricky Hatton rocks the world.
What comes after boxing, especially now Ricky's gone? Ricky will leave a lot in place for the future fighters that come through, and future fighters that might want to emulate what Ricky did. And a lot of that stuff wasn't in place for Ricky himself, and there's been no secret about obviously how Ricky was with his mental health. And I think mental health is something that really needs looking into for boxers, and a lot of boxers will struggle, especially when they retire. I did so myself. A lot of people do. I don't like talking about it too much now because it's gone, it's long in the past, but it happens, and people do tend to lose that identity when you retire. And when you retire from boxing, it's not just you're no longer a fighter, it's you lose your identity. It's all you've been since you were a kid. And there was a great line that I heard Tasha Jonas say once, and it's the athlete dies twice. And that made a lot of sense to me at the time, and I'd never heard it before. But having known what that means now and understanding what that means, it certainly at home makes a lot of sense. So we need a lot more in place for ex-fighters. We need a lot more in place for current fighters to make that transition into retirement a lot more smooth, and to not have it as hard hitting as what retirement can hit you like. And we see it time and time again. People have their worries and have their troubles and have the problems when they retire. Ricky made no secret about his, and if Ricky can now leave something in his name, like the Ricky Hatton Foundation, which his family have started up, myself with the union can collaborate with that, and we can get things in place so that boxers don't need to go through a lot of the stuff that they have to go through now when they retire. When you retire, you should have someone around you. You should have that team and network around you that you've had all through your fighting career. You give your life to boxing, you give your life to the sport. You don't make a plan B. You don't really put plans in place to make everything run smoothly alongside your boxing career, because it's a burn the boat attitude. And if you want to be a good professional boxer, you have to burn the boat. You have to be all in, because you can't be half in. So there needs to be more in place, and the Ricky Hatton Foundation will hopefully do that along the way, alongside the Boxing Union, the GFA.